Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome to Facebook Live with Chase and Jackie of the
Yeah.
Scholerman Group.
Yeah, Jackie Scholerman. How are you doing,
Poole
Chase?
here. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, he was just talking about his kids.
So, today's topic of discussion are really what it was geared towards is how to basically get your home prepared for the market to sell, right?
Yeah.
But what we're specifically looking at today
What are the
maybe
5 mistakes?
5 mistakes that we often see where the homeowners have an idea
Yep.
of how they want the process to go or what's involved. So we're here to discuss some of those and how to avoid them, and ultimately working with a bright agent like Jackie or myself can really save you some time and hassle. So again, 5 biggest mistakes that we see homeowners commit, I guess.
Right.
Number 1 is pricing the home.
Right,
I think
pricing
that's
the
the
home.
number one thing, the largest thing that we see is when you're dealing with a homeowner, especially someone who hasn't
So for a long time.
sold for a long time. Maybe they purchased 30 years ago and they come to you and say, how much is my home worth? What is it? So it is very important to avoid the mistake of overpricing your home. Underpricing, we're not so worried about because it will create bidding wars,
Yeah.
right? But overpricing your home, how do we avoid that?
Yeah. And that's the first inclination of the seller, that they always say, oh, let's go ahead and price it really high, and then we'll just leave room for negotiation.
I can always come down later.
I can
right?
always come down later, exactly. And the problem with that is that when you're overpriced compared to all the other homes that you're competing against, first of all, you're going to help your competition to sell their home.
What do
That's
you
the
mean?
first thing. Well, when the buyers are out there and looking at the homes, and they are not exactly the same, but they are
Comparable.
providing the same values and the
Same
amenities.
neighborhood, roughly
Yeah.
the same.
And when buyers are looking, they're going to look for the best value home that meets all their criteria.
Right.
So if yours is overpriced and then all the others are comparatively looks good, you're basically going to force that buyer to put an offer on your neighbor's home or other
Right.
homes rather than putting an offer on yours, because you make their home to look good value.
Right,
And the whole thing is that you want your home to be looked as the best value.
Right, because buyers are out there not looking for the best house. They're looking for the most valuable home.
Exactly. They're not looking for the highest price. They're looking for the best value.
Exactly. You have 2 of the identical homes. One's listed at $10,000 more. Which one are you going to buy?
Exactly.
The cheaper one, right? So
Yeah.
again, pricing it, you
Right.
never want to price. The other thing, like you were saying, is once you do price it over
Yeah.
and it sits on the market, what happens to those buyers who are out there going, I saw this home. It looks really nice. It's brand new. Why is it sitting on the market for 30
Right,
days? Why has it been on the
exactly.
market for 60 days or 90 days, right?
Yeah, it's really hard to tell the buyers that there's really nothing wrong with a house. It's just that when the house came on the market, that particular day or particular week, it was perceived as an overpriced home, and that's the reason it's sitting and not getting any actions. And until you start reducing the price, and by the time you reduce it to so much that by the time you get an offer, it's usually you sell it under the market value.
Right, exactly. And on the flip side, as a buyer working with some of the buyers in the area, the first thing I hear is, what's wrong with the home?
Yeah.
It's been sitting there. There's something wrong with it, like you said. It's like it could be a perfectly good home. It's just not priced correctly, right?
That
So
is
that is-
correct. So it's really difficult to tell the buyer and overcome the buyer's perception of the house. They automatically think that there's something wrong with the house versus that the price wasn't really compelling to the prospective buyers to buy it.
Or when you do see that reduction, some buyers say, oh, they just reduced the price. Maybe if it doesn't sell within their own given time frame, maybe they'll wait. That actually causes them to wait a little longer to see if it goes down again.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And that's what we see often. I'm losing my lavalier right here. And so the issue is that when you start lowering the price, the buyer sits on the fence line even longer. They say, oh, let's just wait a little bit longer.
Because
the seller is going to reduce it more. So what about pricing? What are the types of pricing that you would recommend?
Well, exactly. So the way to avoid all of this is with the Scholleman Group, we look at there are two ways to price a home. You can price it at market value, which is going to be a fair price.
Yeah, perceived value.
Perceived value. Or you can price it what we would say event pricing, which is taking that perceived value and pricing the home just below that to create an attractive price. Because, as we said, attractive prices draw attention, right? And people see value. If they see a home that they might perceive as underpriced, they're jumping on that because it's a greater value. And so when we use event pricing, we typically see multiple offer situation because we've captured people who saw great value in that home so much that now they're competing and driving that price up, which ultimately, for the seller, they want, right?
Exactly.
Because they want the highest possible price. And so by actually pricing it below market or perceived value, you can actually outbeat somebody who's priced it at the perceived value because you're getting multiple offers, and that's what drives the price up.
Right, exactly. And the name of the game is to price it so attractively and provide that compelling price that the buyers, when they're scrolling online and looking at the home, they're going to say, wow, it looks beautiful, it's got the photos are gorgeous, and the price is very reasonable, and you want to get as many eyeballs on those homes as possible, and those eyeballs are going to lead to showings, and more showings is going to lead to more offers, and more offers is going to bring the absolute highest possible price.
Right.
So pricing the home is extremely important.
Yes, and the key to all this is how do you avoid that? How do you avoid making those mistakes? You work with a realtor like Jackie or myself, Jackie and myself, who has expertise and knowledge, right? So you want to work with somebody who knows the area, who knows the comparables, what's sold, what's on the market, to give you an analysis or an idea of what the home could go for. Also working with a realtor, they're working with buyers and doing transactions through all the time, so they understand what maybe the buyers are looking for or what they're expecting to pay in a certain neighborhood. Whereas a homeowner who just puts their home on just says, I want this X amount, I see great value in my home. Whereas the buyers are coming in and just looking for the best value, and the realtor is saying this is what may be expected, or this is what this neighborhood would warrant for a certain type of property and the location and the amenities and so forth.
Exactly. So basically, as a seasoned realtor who knows the market really well, we have the pulse of the market. We know what the homes are. We should. I mean, we're out there every day showing houses, selling homes, accepting offers, and so forth. So we have really, really good pulse of the market, how it's going. And on top of that, as a realtor, we know what the future is going. We know the trend. Whereas the appraisers, they always look in the rear view mirror of what has sold. Whereas as a realtor, our job is to project what the price is going to be, what the anticipated direction of the market is.
So that actually is a great segue into our number 2 topics or avoidable mistakes for homeowners, and that is selecting an agent. Right? Obviously, an agent, working with a great agent is going to make your life much easier.
Exactly.
A lot, stress-free, as seamless as possible. They're going to try to meet all of your requirements of whatever is important to that particular seller, that particular buyer. So
the way I analyze that, or analogy that I give to my sellers, is just like when you're flying an airplane, as a passenger, and there are 2 different pilots out there. One pilot is going to, of course, lift off, and they're going to come down, but who is going to do the liftoff and the landing as smoothly as possible? That whole trip is going to be an enjoyable trip, rather than having someone who, or that pilot
takes you for a bumpy ride.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. So that's the key, the differentiation between a good realtor and perhaps someone who doesn't do as many transactions as they should. I mean, there are realtors that may be doing as a maybe a hobby versus someone who is that their business and their profession, and they do a lot of transactions. So a realtor who can do the whole process as stress-free and seamlessly and as ease and make it an enjoyable process for both the buyers and sellers is the key.
Another thing I would add to kind of that agent selection process is everybody knows an agent, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's got a friend in the business.
Yeah.
They know it's a cousin, it's a coworker, it's somebody.
Daughter.
They know somebody
Yeah.
with a license,
Yeah.
right? And so they think, oh, you've got a license, you can help me. So what
If
we
they
often
don't,
see,
they don't live around.
Right.
For
and it's important to really interview an agent and really come up before you talk to these agents, what's important to you in either getting your home sold or buying your next home, right? Because ultimately you want to see how those agents stack up to what's important to you.
Yeah.
Okay? So you might be looking for, as a seller, the highest possible price. And so that might be something you ask those agents, how are you going to get me the highest possible price?
Yeah, the exposure.
Rather than just saying, oh, my cousin Jackie is ready to put my home up the market, I'm just going to leave it up to her, and so forth.
Yeah.
So I think that understanding what's most important to you in your journey, and then matching that and aligning that with an agent that can, satisfy those needs and wants along the journey. Yeah.
And exactly, having a realtor in the community that first of all knows the market, and more importantly has a great relationship with the rest of the realtor community.
Absolutely.
In the area, and has a great relationship with the lenders, knows all the lenders and who is good, who is maybe not so good. The appraisers, what kind of a relationship do you have with the appraisers? What kind of relationship do you have with the inspectors? And how do you handle all of that? And the other key I would say is really important is, does that realtor have systems and process in place? Are they just working from the memory or are they have do they have 1,000 checklists that just like when the pilot is taking off and landing, they check every one of those checklists to make sure that it's going to be a smooth transaction. Same thing with us. We check every checklist to make sure that nothing has been left behind.
Absolutely. Anything else to add in the agent realm?
Well, again, just like a heart surgeon, do you want to go to a heart surgeon that does surgery, let's say 5 or 7 surgery per week, or do you want to go to a heart surgeon that maybe has 1 surgery a year? Which one do you want? So it's, from my perspective, the homes are typically the highest value asset in someone's portfolio.
Right.
So selecting a realtor who is going to achieve your goals and what is really important to you, it's going to be critical.
Absolutely.
And, a lot of realtors are going to say, oh, I can get you that price. Well, of course, it's not, obviously every realtor will try to get the price, but ultimately is the buyer that is going to pay the highest possible price. So what is that realtor is going to do to position you so that they can identify that one particular buyer that is going to pay the highest possible price with all the terms that the seller is looking for. So, yeah, it's important.
So number 3 on the list of topics to avoid or roadblocks to avoid when selling your home is, in general, I'll just say home preparation. And this is twofold. I mean this in 2 ways. So some of the mistakes when it comes to home prep is either not doing enough or doing too much.
Too much.
Right?
Yeah.
And that is actually a thing, doing too much, right? Let's start there.
Yeah.
Doing too much, again, working with us, with ourselves, we understand what buyers, we work with buyers all the time. So we understand what buyers are looking for, what is important to them. in a home with if it's the amenities and so forth. So when we deal with that, we have a great understanding of, well, this is what the typical buyer likes versus the homeowner who says, I'm going to take a wild guess.
Yeah.
I watch all the HGTV shows and the remodeling shows, and I'm going to pick all the same fixtures and everything. So having a homeowner go at it on their own and just say, I think we're going to power wash this, and we're going to paint this, and we're going to add this, and we're going to replace this, and we're going to remodel that, because I think this is what everybody's expecting. There's been times where we have to tell people, don't do that. It's not going to return on. You're not going to see a return on the investment, because the buyers, they're not concerned about that. Either they're going to buy the home if that is there or not.
Right.
Right?
Exactly. We typically look at the house and to determine to what extent do we need to prep this home. I sold a home in Midtown Palo Alto that between Richard and I, we walked in and we looked at the property, and the seller was prepared to spend up to $50,000 to do any improvement that we would have suggested. After looking at the property, we knew that the bones were not there. So we recommended not to do anything, just simply
sell it as is.
Sell it as is. We cleaned it up to a certain degree, vacuuming and doing a little bit of landscaping, but basically sell it as is. And we actually sold it for multiple offer. I think at that time it was like $500,000 over asking price. The seller was so excited because, first of all, we got them substantially more than what they were expecting, and also the fact that we were looking after their pocket money to make sure that we are not wasting their money.
Absolutely.
So we always look at the condition of the house, the layout of the house, and then we try to spend the money and make the recommendations based on how much return and what kind of a multiple return on investment we can generate for the seller.
Absolutely. So in that case, I remember that. So when you get an offer for $500,000 over the asking price, do you really think that $50,000 that you would have spent in replacing a refrigerator or having a roof redone or something, when ultimately the buyer's idea is, hey, I'm going to come in and I'm going to tear this thing down, or I'm going to rebuild, or I'm going to immediately remodel.
Right.
So again, for that homeowner to think, oh, I should spend this X amount of dollars, everything I spend is going to increase the value X% or fold.
Right.
It's not always the case.
That's true.
So there are sometimes some avoidable mistakes in over preparing or spending too much, thinking that you're going to see a return on that.
Right. Exactly.
And working with a seasoned realtor is going to say, in our experience, X, Y, Z, and so forth. Well,
right. And
walk them off the ledge of spending too much.
Exactly. And the best way to approach from my perspective is I typically walk in with either stager, which is typically interior designer, and we go through the house to find out what is the least expensive or most economical way of improving the house based on what the buyer's demand is and expectation is. And then also coordinate all those remodeling with the staging theme that the stager is going to be staging the house. So that way we're
actually work together.
We work together, exactly. So it's almost like putting the puzzles together and really make it work really tightly and come up with the package that, again, as I mentioned, that sings to the buyer when the buyer walks into the house.
Yeah, so on the flip side of these home preparation mistakes is not doing anything.
Yeah.
So in the case where we tell sellers don't spend any money, that's typically maybe because the home, we see the end user coming in and is going to make massive changes to the property, right?
Yeah.
And so on the flip side, with those who have a home that's in a great location, it's a good size, it has it's in good condition and has good bones. Whereas a seller might say, you know what, this is a great house.
Right.
I don't need to do anything to it, right?
Yeah.
Because I live in a great neighborhood, I live on a great street, or I live right next to this great school. I'm going to get the best possible price. Whereas we also have to have that conversation of if this home is going to stay with an end user, maybe we should be painting, cleaning up, the clutter, power washing,
Right.
replacing things.
The light fixtures
Right.
and so forth.
Right, because that new homeowner isn't
Yeah.
going to come in and gut the home,
Yeah.
right? Because it's a good quality home, that it meets their criteria.
Right.
So that is on the flip side.
Yeah, exactly. And quite frankly, the one that we sold recently in San Carlos was a true example of that,
Mm-hmm.
because the husband said, "Oh, my house is beautiful. I don't need to do anything." Well, the light fixture was done in 1970s, and of course now we're in 2021. And then the paint was painted 20 years ago, and what's wrong with it? Well, the
A fresh
paint,
coat of paint on a
fresh
brick
coat of paint,
fireplace.
and then the carpet that was a probably 70s shag carpet that needed to be changed and put a brand new one, or maybe even the wood floor had scratches on it, and really doing a very
deep clean,
quick
Sand.
sanding, bring the life back to that wood floor. So he was very hesitant. It took us several meetings with myself and also with the stager to convince him that by spending maybe another $10,000 or maybe $20,000, we can get you
What did it sell? Almost for
$400,000 above
$400,000
asking price.
right?
So if it wasn't because of some of those improvements that we recommended, we probably would not have sold it for
As that much.
$400,000 above asking price.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So there's a balance. So we just have to look at each house to see what is the best
Solution,
strategy
right,
and
strategy.
scenario and solutions for each home. And then, because not every home is the same, and we have to see what is the best strategy for each individual house.
Absolutely. Number 4
Yeah.
on the list, avoidable mistakes by homeowners,
Yeah.
is you've listed your home, it's on the market,
Yeah.
and now it's time for showings.
Oh.
Now it's time for the public to go see your home.
You went through that last week.
So, I would say, in terms of showing flexibility, if the avoidable mistake is you have to be flexible.
Yeah.
And in fact, what we would suggest is right when that home hits the market, the first 2 weeks, making your home as available as possible. And honestly, I think that means taking a 2-week vacation, getting out of the home.
And
so
enjoy
that-
the trip.
Yes, so
Time
that
off.
way, that home can be seen by as many eyeballs as possible throughout the entire day for 1 or 2 weeks,
Yeah.
especially on those first 2 weekends are
Yeah.
very important
Yeah.
to have as much time as possible to get as many people in the door.
Yes.
So having that flexibility and being able to be away could definitely benefit you in just getting as many people in there and creating that urgency.
Yeah.
In today's market, a good priced home in a great neighborhood sells within 5-10 days, right?
Yeah.
Or typically within those first 2
Yeah,
weekends.
exactly.
And so with that type of aggressive market that we're in, that flexibility by the homeowner to make that home available to the public is very important.
Yeah.
Also, well, I'll just tell the story.
Yeah.
Also would be your flexibility in leaving the property
Yeah.
for show. So actually, I took one of my buyers to visit a home the other day. We set up with their agent a time to go show and look at it.
Yeah.
And we show up and we find that the homeowner and his wife and child are occupying the home, but they stayed there during the whole showing. So I'm walking my client through this gentleman's home as they're walking with us.
Yeah.
And that really turned off my buyer and felt uncomfortable. She could no longer see the home if it was staged nicely.
Yeah.
If it was empty and it was just us two, we could have a conversation about, oh, could you see your family sitting here and
Yeah.
having dinner? Could you see your kids in the bathtub here and doing this and playing in this backyard? Well, we couldn't have that. She couldn't envision it because she felt I'm in somebody's home right now.
Right. And she was invading
And I'm
sellers.
invading their privacy.
Yeah.
So they didn't feel comfortable. So it would be interesting to see the feedback from that particular buyer on that home that has nothing to do with the home, but just the uncomfortableness of not that seller not having the flexibility
Exactly.
to exit the property and really let someone go in and immerse themselves in the
Yeah.
home to really get an understanding, is this where I want to live next?
Because they want to have a privacy to discuss the house, how the layout is going to work out, and what are the good things or maybe not such a good things about the property. And because if the seller is at the property at the moment that you're showing, they feel a little bit, well, they don't want to hurt the seller's feelings. So they don't want
Absolutely. They
to
might
be
not
overheard.
be as truthful. They might be holding back their true feelings about maybe things they do like about the house or don't like. They could really love the house, but they don't want the seller to see it, because then they're like, oh, well, their thought is if they know I really like it, then they're going to expect me to pay more or above asking.
Or I don't want to hurt their feelings.
Or I don't like this and I don't want to say anything because I don't want to. So regardless, if you are the homeowner and you're present, you're not going to get that true feedback from those buyers, and you're not going to understand, what the true sentiment is. So definitely have some flexibility.
And the serious buyers typically come, I mean, those that they are really going to make an offer, they typically come and see the house at least two, 3, 4, 5 times. They may bring their architect, they may bring their contractors, they may bring their friends, mom and dad, and so forth, to get their opinion before they make an offer. So having the house vacant and available as frequently as possible for the buyers to come and see the house is really important. It's just only the first 2 weeks that is extremely crucial.
Absolutely. Anything else that you would add to maybe some flexibility of the buyer?
Well, sometimes you're selling a property that is tenant occupied, and in that situation, you notify the tenant. We try to be as accommodating as possible
to meet their schedule.
To meet the tenant's schedule. So we schedule a certain, block of time to show the property. But again, to make the house vacant while the buyer is looking at the property is going to make a night and day difference in the price that they're going to be offering.
Absolutely. Last topic, avoidable mistakes by these homeowners and sellers is selecting the best, or I would say just selecting the best offer for them.
Yeah.
And so what do I mean by how does somebody make a mistake by selecting an offer? They're selling their home, right?
Yeah. Of course, the seller, the first thing they want is, who offered me the highest price?
How much can I get for this thing? Who's
exactly.
got the highest price? Well, let me tell you a story. This is, selecting the best offer isn't always the highest price, right? It's what is going to be the best for both parties involved.
The packet.
And then, here's the story. So last month we helped someone purchase a home, and we submitted an offer over asking price. However, we were number 2 on the list, right? There was another offer that came in higher than us. However, our offer was selected, and the reason for that is because we had better terms.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not always about the price. So in this case, in this exact scenario, we had an all-cash offer close in 5 days, versus a loan or an offer that had a loan at a higher price, a higher purchase price, but they had a loan, and as we know, with a loan, there's going to be an appraisal from the bank and different approvals from the bank, and so there's a bit of risk assumed, and there's a longer closing period. The bank sets that closing period at, in this day and age, could be 30, 45 days with how much activity there is. So the point
is the risk of appraisal.
Is the risk of choosing an offer with a loan versus choosing a lower offer with cash in 5 days.
Right.
So then it becomes, what is best for those sellers? Is it just best to take a couple more $100,000, or is it best to take a non-contingent offer and close this thing and be on our way to the next property? Right?
Exactly. And it's not all about the price. The terms are extremely important, especially if there are contingencies in there.
Contingencies,
because
yes, you need to be aware.
If the buyer goes out there and start doing inspections and they come up with something that maybe the seller's inspector missed out, can potentially be a ground for either canceling the contract or renegotiating the price. And so it's really tricky when you are dealing with just strictly the price. So the key is, as a buyer agent, you really need to call the seller's agent to find out really what is important to the seller, and then make sure that your offer accommodates everything that a seller is looking for.
Right. So when you're thinking of, it goes back to selecting that agent,
Yeah.
right? And that mistake is, so you're asking what's important to you. Well, the right agent is going to sit you down and say, okay, this is what's important to you. This is what we discussed. Now, how do these offers match up and align? So in a multiple offer situation, what we do is we take all of those offers and we review them and we kind of stack rank.
Yeah.
This one is this price. This
spreadsheet.
We create this spreadsheet so that we can take essentially all these different offers and try to compare apples to apples.
Yeah.
Right. So that will help you avoid picking any or choosing anything that said, oh, this was a high price, but I didn't realize this. I wish I would have known, or I wish I would have chosen the other offers.
Right.
So working with a realtor, absolutely. So put that.
And that's where the experience and good realtors background and their strategic thinking and the process really kicks in, because when you start comparing 10 different offers with 10 different prices and 10 different terms and conditions, how do you sift through all of that to find out which one is the one that you need to advise your seller to consider accepting, even though it may not be the absolute highest price?
Oh, and not to mention, this is all on a time frame, right? Because all these offers come with an expiration date, right? And in this market, because it's so competitive, that time frame and that window of time can be as little as 24 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Not all the time, but again, when you receive that offer, you're typically on a time crunch to accept it or decline it or counter. So
That's
again,
true. And same thing with the rent back, because in today's market, all the sellers are concerned about where am I going to go next, and giving that rent back to the sellers, it puts put them at ease that they don't have to rush and pack and move out. They've got a little bit of time.
Some time to go
and to go
compete and find the next house, right? Because it's a competitive market out there, especially.
That's true. So we discussed all 5. So
in recap, 5 avoidable mistakes when for sellers who are thinking about selling are pricing, selecting the right agent, preparation of the home, flexibility in showing the home, right? And then lastly is selecting the right offer. And so when you are working with an agent or thinking of selling, start discussing, thinking of what's going to be important to you in selling your home, and then start interviewing agents. And really all you have to do is interview Jackie and myself, and then
you're done.
You're done, because we'll check all the boxes, right?
Yeah, we've got systems and process to get it done as seamlessly and as effortlessly as possible.
Yes.
Make it enjoyable. I call white glove service.
Absolutely. So if you're thinking of buying or selling in today's market, give us a call here at the Schullerman Group. We'd love to set up a 15-minute strategy session with you to ultimately first find out what's most important to you in getting your home sold. And then we customize that game plan, what's going to get you whatever's important, if it's the highest possible price or the fastest
terms,
whatever the terms are. That's our focus in making sure that you're taken care of. So until next time, thank you again for following us here on Facebook Live. We look forward to it. And I believe we're doing this every 2 weeks.
Yeah, every 2 weeks.
But next week, I think we're going
to have another one next week.
Yes.
And we're looking forward to seeing you again.
Okay, bye guys.
Bye.
Have a great day.